All right. Thank you all for attending. This is a seminar tonight hosted by three chapters: the Houston chapter, the Calgary chapter, and the Midwest chapter.
Hi, all.
I'm going to talk first about the introductions, and I want to welcome Clarence, our directors first. Clarence, Bruce, Jimmy Garcia, Paul Bauer. Paul is our vice president. Let me see, Carrie Millen. See who else we have here today. Let me, we have I believe we have our vice president, Paul Bowers. I am Bill Beasley, executive director, and Catherine is our secretary and manager of operations. This meeting tonight is co-hosted by myself. I'm SPED executive director, and I'm representing the Houston chapter. Bruce Fraser, who's a SPED director and Calgary chapter president, and Ron Walden, who's a member of the Midwest, representing the Midwest chapter, and is a PBDAC chairman. We'll explain what that is in a minute. And I want to welcome everybody who's here to participate tonight, and we'll get on with the program. The agenda beyond the introductions and the workshop agenda is we're going to have first an introduction to the PBD program and the advisory committee, the PBDAC, and the level 4 issues with that. Then I want to talk about the current requirements as we've executed them today in our level of testing. And then Bruce Fraser is going to talk about some of the challenges that we're having to our requirements for PBD level 4 that come from the using of high value engineering centers. Then we'd like to collect input from all the attendees on how these requirements might change. And then we'll try to summarize what we've learned tonight and then adjourn. So first, I'd like to introduce Ron Walden, who's going to discuss the Professional Piping Designer Program, the PBD Advisory Committee, and Level 4 requirements.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to once again welcome everyone to this SPED workshop. As Bill just said, I'm going to give you an overview of the certification program and the PPDAC committee, and then talk a little bit about level 4. There are 4 levels, as you can see, of in the certification program. And level 1 is the entry level, of course, and that's for folks who have completed the Piper boot camp or have taken some entry courses in a technical school. Then the level 2 has they have enough experience to be able to organize and assure quality in their piping layouts. The level 3 senior people are the ones who have the knowledge of space requirements and are able to do the equipment layouts from a quality or an efficiency, piping efficiency standpoint. And like, for instance, they know that you have to leave space for 2-pull bundles and that sort of thing. And they also can guide the younger pipers, and they're doing some of their layouts. And then level 4 is, of course, the top level that we currently have in SPED. That's the person, the designer who has been around the block many times and knows how to manage the people and the design work, does engineering estimates and man-hour estimates, and just as it says in the slide, the full scope of work. These folks are qualified through testing and their acceptable experience level. I want to say one thing about the testing. Beyond level 1, starting with level 2, each person, whatever the level that they're applying for, they have to take the previous level test as well as the level test that they're applying to get. Meaning, if somebody wants to apply for level 2, they have to take the level 2 test as well as the level 1 test. We started this several years ago because believe it or not, I had a senior designer who worked in my group, and he had been designing pipe for 15 years or so, and he worked on CAD, and it was assumed by me that he knew how to do the things like in doing field work and the basic stuff. And I come to find out the hard way that he really didn't. He passed the level 3 exam, and he had enough knowledge to do that, but there was nothing on that level 3 exam that covered or touched on some of the functions that we have to do in the field. So I found out again the hard way that he got on the field and he didn't know what to do. He had been sitting designing pipe on CAD for a long time, but he didn't know the field side of things. So anyway, I wanted to bring that forward and to say that that's why we have two exams that have to be taken for each level above level 1. So new slide, please. We'll talk a little bit about the PPD Advisory Committee. What we do. First of all, I would say that it's level 4 members only. They are as I just said, the people who've been around a while, and they know the ins and outs, the technical aspects of, and are able to, certify what is being done technically. The RP001 is the recommended practice for assessing piping designers' baseline skills and competencies. And this is primarily what we use when somebody is applying for certification, whatever level that they are certified or they're applying for. Then we can look to see if they meet that criteria for that given level. And if not, then we will push back and say, no, you need to, say if they were applying for level 3, and they know you need to first apply and be certified as a level 2. And then finally, the committee recommends any changes to the PPD certification program to the board, and whatever that's required additions to the level of competency primarily is what that would be, what that would amount to. So next slide, please. This is the RP001 that I just spoke of. As you can see, it starts with the very basic, the person who has gone to technical school and has got their math and science under their belt, and then their they can go into becoming a, drafter or a CAD operator, and then so forth. And from there, then they can apply for PPD level 1. And as I said earlier, they've gone through Piper Boot Camp, any company training programs, and on-the-job training. Level 2, well, they have to be able to do everything in level 1, as well as being able to prepare, piping layouts and for correctness and completeness. And level 3, they again will guide the younger designers, and they are capable of doing process plant layouts and that sort of thing. And then level 4, they have the ability to schedule, plan, and do cost estimates, supervise other designers, and basically can take the design from the front-end engineering to completion all the way through. So, and then we have the licensed professionals and their capabilities of, being able to specify piping design calculations and that sort of thing. That, I think, stress analysis, would fall into that as well. So, next slide, please. What is PPD level 4? Well, as I've said, it's the highest skill level in the certification program. Documents the full scope piping lead experience and knowledge. They must receive a passing grade on the level 4 and level 3 exams. And they must have at least 20 years of experience. This used to be less, but several years back, it was thought that someone with less than 20 years of experience really could not have had time to experience everything that they probably needed to experience to be at that highest level of level 4. So that's why it was changed to the 20-year experience level. And then they must receive recommendations validating their experience from their supervisor or past supervisors, project managers, anyone that can validate that they've done the drill, that they've done everything they're supposed to have done for level 4. So that's the overview of what we do. And so, Bill, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay. My part in tonight's workshop is to go over the current PPD level 4 knowledge requirements. And this is the way we test for it today. And then at the end, Bruce will follow up with the challenges to those requirements presented by high value engineering centers. So with that in mind, let me go into the requirements as we test today. First of all, we assume level 1, 2, and 3 skills when we test. So we don't go into how to route pipe or quality assurance. Those skills are presumed when they get to level 4. But we do, I guess I've tried to organize this in 3 areas. We concentrate on planning and bidding, executing lead tasks, and management and metrics. And these are my choices for organization to try to make it a simple night. In planning and bidding, here are the areas we're testing for today. Certain plan design tasks, such as describing main deliverables, data sets, and who owns them. Costing, list documents for various sources of types of cost estimates, because there are different ways of estimating costs in plant design. Staff planning that describes, that includes the issues considered in mobilizing and demobilizing a plant crew. Scheduling, how you do normal sequencing of project tasks and deliverables and do schedule compression trade-offs. Statement of work contents, such as listing the contents and general level of detail in a typical project statement of work. And of course, there's several statement of works to discuss, but they have to know how to write that. And then IT support, describe what kind of IT support would be needed on a modern model-based project. Then in terms of execution, they need skills in assigning staff, like making the typical trade-offs and assigning a real staff member to a piping task, whether we use contract staff or outsourced work. Field work, that's describing field work to collect data for brownfield piping work. And we cover that extensively in level 2, but this is more of a management level understanding of that work. Then the needs of completing completion, commissioning, and closeout, understanding and defining mechanical completion, which we also cover in level 2. And then finally, management issues like fulfillment. What are the steps and sign-offs needed to fulfill a contract deliverable, and how do you determine different types of status, like as released, as built, and as approved, and so on. Then how do you determine things like metrics like percent completion? How do we do that? How do we use that in earned value management and other management systems that depend on completion metrics? Then how do you manage change in scope and scope creep, I guess, and how those are typically affected by piping changes? And then RFQ documents like request for quotations, what's the content of various work packages, and so on, that you might prepare for quotation. Now, these are all challenged by our new, all these requirements, as I've stated, are what we test for, but today they're challenged by this use of high value engineering centers overseas. So with that, I turn it over to Bruce Fraser, who discussed some of the challenges he's observed and why we may have to change these requirements. Bruce, can't hear you. Bruce, you're muted.
I'm muted. Look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill, and good evening, everyone. Essentially, if you find yourself as a lead or manager in an HVEC using Office, or what is the new acronym now they've just thrown at us? Global Engineering Center. Now it's a GEC. It's no longer a high value. It's a global engineering center. So, the euphemisms keep changing. But essentially, what this does is throw a bit of a wrench into the works for all of the skills that Bill mentioned here, particularly around costing, planning, scheduling, scope of work. You're now having to divide all this up between your home office, where in my case it would be Calgary, and your foreign office or your global office. In my case, it's in Mumbai. Plus, you need to have additional resources and additional hours in your estimate to manage this distance communication. So just you can see on the slide there, HVACs are generally a resource base that comes in at a much cheaper rate in order to reduce cost to the client on overall engineering costs, and then the differences in rates are significant enough that any additional hours made up for the things I'm going to talk about generally bring the rate down, especially at higher percentages of HVAC use. So that does make a business case. That's the business case that many clients have been sold, that modern EPCs have sold to their clients and is in common use. I remember being at Fluor 20 years ago, actually, working up at the airport here in Calgary in 2001. VP came on with a big video conference call and says, if you're a designer, you're going to need to find a new line of work, because eventually we're going to be pushing everything overseas. And so we see that more and more. And the challenges for our PPD4s now is, how do we manage this? How do we still function? Because we still need home office leadership. We can't throw it all overboard. That's just not wise. And the clients won't accept that either. They understand that you need the core expertise in your home office. Next slide, please.
Hold on.
Next slide there, Bill.
Okay.
There we go. So every office in HVAC, this is a bit of an odd slide, but one of the disadvantages, I guess, of having an HVAC is nobody's in close contact with the client so much over there, particularly if you're associated with a particular job site. Our Sarnia office, for example, is just down the road from many of their clients' facilities. They're right embedded there. Calgary is generally remote from oil sands and everything. We're an 8-hour drive or a couple hour flight up. But it's even worse for HVAC. Of course, you can't really be in local contact with operations and even with the site itself. So this remoteness does add some challenges to how you manage that work. And more, although there were just a minority of hours coming over there, and pretty much a sort of a set minimum size job to go over. My recent experience here in my current position is that any size job qualifies now for HVAC hours, and our DOR, or our division of responsibilities, and the percent cut between the two offices is now based on stated capabilities. So if the HVAC convince management they have a stated capability in a certain area, the majority of the work of that area is going to go over there. And so home office now is going to be in more of an oversight position. So we're pushing now majority hours over to HVAC. The last project I just completed here last month was targeted at 65% HVAC hours, and we were very close to that target. But what this means, though, that now you have to divide the scope of work. You say it's fairly easy to put most of your modeling hours over there. If the guys are doing your modeling and your layouts, you can feed studies to them. But all your 2D deliverables, you still need stamping and signing from your stamping engineer over here. You need a certain amount of division. So part and parcel of getting this to work and managing it is even in your estimating, is breaking up into subunits, the various tasks required for a certain deliverable, and then assigning those tasks either to home office or HVAC. You might have your checking here, for example, or you may just have your final check and stamping here, or you may have some of your development here. You could be managing all your document control and everything out of here, or you could be farming that out over there. It really depends on the skill quality, your communication, who you have involved. We're discovering now that having what we've termed a focal point, or a single point of contact, who kind of runs the crew there in a way and helps coordinate the work locally on the floor, is really vital. And then the leads are in regular communication with this deputy or focal point. And right now it's through, Zoom. We use my MS Teams. That seems to be the most stable platform that we've had. Calls, and we try to get early morning contact for us, which is later evening contact for HVAC. And it's very helpful if the HVAC is working some off hours. And they are not working morning hours, but they are working more afternoon, evening hours. If they're not, then that means that you need a rep here who's going to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be talking to these guys. And I know that's a model that some people have engaged in. So does it work? I mean, yes, it does, but it requires additional hours, additional oversight, and it puts a lot of strain on the leads. Because now you're not just running your local crew. It's difficult to really get integrated with a group if they're on the floor. I mean, working from home's, doing that to people as well. But now I'm working from home plus 12 hours or 11 and a half hours. So that does pose some pretty unique challenges. And then there's big cultural differences in there as well. Next slide. So I mentioned this DOR is division of responsibility and scope of work. That's really key. We have our Calgary, Houston, and Sarnia offices right now working on a shared document that's going to give us at least some kind of go-by. Obviously, if you're gearing more towards Brownfield, you're going to have less ability to push work over. If you're a greenfield and there's a good experience level in your HVAC, you're going to be able to push more. Qualifying personnel can be a bit of a challenge. Vetting people who are from a different culture, a different background, resumes are useless, as you know, and interviewing people for both technical skill and language skills and the ability to get on with people and communicate well. There's still ESL, right? So that's a challenge. So vetting the team is really, really critical. If you're staffing up quickly in reaction to a scope change or something, that can be a challenge because they're going to throw bodies at it to make your manpower, to fill the FTEs and get your progress, but you won't necessarily get the quality that you're after. So it's really, really key you have a strong relationship with this focal point over there, and that he becomes he's not only your admin, but he's a working on the floor kind of guy. So checking, mentoring of distance staff, that's very difficult. Electronic checking, which most of us are doing anyways, I think is absolutely mandatory. We use SharePoint here, and all the check prints, we're just using PDF markup. We're not using Bluebeam. But if using Bluebeam or something like that, I think we're using Foxit for our markups. That all goes into folders, right? All the check prints, all the yellow offs, everything, it all goes into folders. And so we can track that. There are some cultural differences there, though, in the self-check and responsibility. We're finding with India, it's a very hierarchical kind of society, and a self-check is not necessary. The guy does his work. Oh, it's up to the checker now to that's his thing. It's out of my hands, right? So you've got to try to battle some of that, or you'll ask them to do something, and they'll just kind of throw it over the wall to you, thinking that they did it right, and it really maybe wasn't really what you're after. You have to really explain yourself carefully, and you have to take extra time and really make sure that people understand your instructions. We've seen this in our Sarnia team. They do a lot of Brownfield at Imperial and Novachem and Shell out there, and they've sent a point cloud model over to our Mumbai office recently, and the guys really struggled with the idea of working in Brownfield. It turns out that nobody on the team had ever been to site. Nobody had ever seen the type of equipment that they were working on, and it caused some issues in the design and some rework here. So when you're vetting people, it's tough to find people over there who have that kind of all-around skill that you're used to, having with a couple of your senior designers. So that can be a real challenge. This next point, I guess, cost realism in bids. The client sold this one team concept, and it won't take any more hours. We're seamless. And then they just tell you to make it seamless. Well, that's an absolute fallacy. That's something that just is not realistic in its approach. And I think anybody who's experienced working with HVAC could support that. You do need these intermediate people. You either got to bring them here training, or there was days, in pre-COVID and when HVAC was just going, you'd bring a guy over here for 6 months and maybe during feed, right, and get them used to the facility and everything, and then send them back over for detail, and maybe follow up with one of your people going over there. That just doesn't seem to happen anymore. COVID notwithstanding, I think it's a practice that's just kind of fallen by the wayside. But maybe we can get some of that in the comments. But you do need extra hours in your bid, even just for additional meetings. All right, you're meeting with your team, whatever. You're not just popping out of your office door for 5 minutes and looking over somebody's shoulder and saying, oh, hey, can you do this now? Or dropping a piece of paper on their desk. No, now you got to set up and coordinate a meeting or get them all of teams and make sure sometimes you're 12 hours apart and oh crap, you got to wait till tomorrow. So there's a lot of inefficiencies built in to this kind of thing. So you need to set those expectations with a client and with your own management, and let them know politely, of course, in a good business way, just about the reality and the extra load on the project, and the load personally on yourself as a lead. And this is something that's not often considered, but the toll that HVAC takes on the home office senior people is enormous. It really is. I can't stress that enough. It is it impacts the mental health and the physical health of everybody who's involved. This last point here, supply chain offshoring. It's so global these days. We've had pretty good success with. We had a package engineer doing simple packages for us, pipe fittings, valves, that kind of thing, and then we had our resident kind of more expert materials engineer and package engineer doing our SP items and that sort of thing. So that split kind of worked okay. But make sure that you keep it simple over there and to the basics for your RFQs and all that kind of thing. Next slide. I see. There we go. I got 2 minutes. I still got 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty much wraps it up. I guess we can field some questions and have some open discussion here.